Hello there, and welcome back to Bible Break, our 15 minutes or so each week in the Bible. And we've got a good bit to get through because Jacob has fled from Laban now. And Laban, we're told, the subheading in my NIV here is that Laban pursues Jacob because he's not going to let him go and get away that easily. Which, if by now we know anything about Laban, makes perfect sense to us. So we're in Genesis chapter 31 and reading from verse 22 today to the end of the chapter, which will be verse 55. And I'm reading from my NIV as usual. Okay, so let's go. Laban pursues Jacob, Genesis 31, verse 22. On the third day, Laban was told that Jacob had fled. So he hadn't noticed. Taking his relatives with him, he pursued Jacob for 7 days and caught up with him in the hill country of Gilead. It's a saying in the Bible, or question asked in the Bible, is there a balm in Gilead? Good question. Verse 24, then God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream at night and said to him, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country of Gilead when Laban overtook him, and Laban and his relatives camped there too. Then Laban said to Jacob, what have you done? You've deceived me, and you've carried off my daughters like captives in war. That, of course, was not how his daughters actually saw it. You remember from our last reading that they were 100% behind Jacob for the departure and the separation from their father. But Laban plays the victim here now, of course. Why did you run off secretly and deceive me? Even though he had noticed for 3 days that they had, of course. Why didn't you tell me so I could send you away with joy and singing to the music of tambourines and harps? Because that's what I would have done, of course. You didn't even let me kiss my grandchildren and my daughters goodbye. You've done a foolish thing. Here comes the threat. I have the power to harm you. But last night, the God of your father said to me, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. Now you've gone off because you long to return to your father's house, but why did you steal my gods? Well, of course, God had, we just read it at the start of our reading, that God did warn Laban not to lay a finger on Jacob. That's not to say, of course, as we are seeing, that's not when God said not to say a word to Jacob, either good or bad. God was not saying not to say anything to him at all, and Laban didn't understand it that way. But to be very careful as to how he handled the situation. Well, verse 31, Jacob begins by making his excuses. Jacob answered Laban, I was afraid because I thought you'd take your daughters away from me by force. It took me 14 years to get them, didn't it? But if you find anyone who has your gods, he shall not live. In the presence of our relatives, see for yourself whether there is anything of yours here with me, and if so, take it. Now, Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the gods, which we know because we read it at the end of our last reading, but Jacob didn't know it. So Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent and into the tent of the two maidservants, but he found nothing. After he came out of Leah's tent, he entered Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the household gods and put them inside her camel's saddle and was sitting on them. Laban searched through everything in the tent, but found nothing. Rachel said to her father, don't be angry, my lord, that I cannot stand up in your presence. I'm having my period. So he searched but could not find the household gods. Jacob was angry and took Laban to task. What is my crime? He asked Laban. What sin have I committed that you hunt me down? Now that you've searched through all my goods, what have you found that belongs to your household? Put it here in front of your relatives and mine, and let them judge between the two of us. I have been with you for 20 years now. Your sheep and goats have not miscarried, nor have I eaten rams from your flocks. I did not bring you animals torn by wild beasts. I bore the loss myself, and you demanded payment from me for whatever was stolen by day or night. This was my situation. The heat consumed me in the daytime and the cold at night, and sleep fled from my eyes. It was like this for the 20 years I was in your household. I worked for you 14 years for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your flocks, and you changed my wages 10 times. So there you have it. There was 6 years between our last reading and the agreement there between Jacob and Laban. There was 6 years between that and this situation. And you changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abram, and the fear of Isaac had not been with me, you would surely have sent me away empty-handed. But God has seen my hardship and the toil of my hands, and last night he rebuked you. Laban answered Jacob, the women are my daughters, the children are my children, and the flocks are my flocks. All you see is mine. Well, it's not quite true what he's just said there, is there? I mean, I don't know what the tradition is, but the children are his grandchildren, not his children. Anyway, all you see is mine. Yet, what can I do today about these daughters of mine or about the children they have borne? That's how he sees them, as his children, I suppose. Come now, let's make a covenant, you and I, and let it serve as a witness between us. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. He said to his relatives, gather some stones. So they took stones and piled them in a heap, and they ate there by the heap. Laban called it Jegar-sahadutha, and Jacob called it Gilead. But both of those names actually mean, by all accounts, witness heap. Laban said, this heap is a witness between you and me today. That is why it was called Gilead. It was also called Mizpah, because he said, may the Lord keep watch between you and me when we are away from each other. And Mizpah apparently means watchtower. If you will treat my daughters, or if you take any wives besides my daughters, even though no one is with us, remember that God is a witness between you and me. It's a bit rich, isn't it, now? Laban playing the protective father. I mean, it is true what he says, that God is the witness of what we all do and the judge of us all. But it's a bit rich, him playing the victim to begin with, and now the protective father, when by all accounts, according to our last reading, his daughters couldn't wait to get away from him. Laban also said to Jacob, here is this heap and here is this pillar I have set up between you and me. This heap is a witness and this pillar is a witness, that I will not go past this heap to your side to harm you, and that you will not go past this heap and pillar to my side to harm me. May the God of Abram and the God of Nahor, Abram's ancestor there, the God of their father, judge between, or relative, the God of their father judge between us. So Jacob took an oath in the name of the fear of his father, Isaac. He offered a sacrifice there in the hill country and invited his relatives to a meal. And after they had eaten, they spent the night there. Early the next morning, Laban kissed his grandchildren, his daughters, and blessed them. Then he left and returned home. Now, it's interesting how Laban is obliged to recognize the intervention of Jacob's God, because we are reading in this reading about Laban's own domesticated household gods. And whatever conception of God that Laban and his ancestors had, he swears by this God or these gods. Whereas the God now who has revealed himself to Abram and revealed himself to Isaac and is the fear of Isaac, certainly not a domesticated household idol, but the fear of Isaac, Jacob swears by this God who has also met with him and who has protected him right now, just recently, against the oncoming onslaught from his uncle Laban, because Laban recognizes that Jacob's God has spoken to him and that he needs to sit up and take notice and not deal harshly or unwisely with Jacob. So this is really literally quite revealing stuff. That's the first thing I wanted to talk about, really, or mention, was the evidence of God's intervention and of God's help throughout this story and this part of the story of the separation of Jacob from his shyster uncle. And that's where we pick up, because Jacob really spells out what he believes to be the reason why his God, the God who is just, the God who sees all, who knows all, and the God who judges accordingly, has spoken up on his behalf, and encouraged by what Laban has had to say about God stepping in to warn him. Jacob finally lets it all hang out from verse 36. Jacob was angry and took Laban to task. There is, of course, a place for anger in life, a place for anger in Christianity. Now, we have to be a little bit careful here, because the Bible does warn against us getting angry at the drop of a hat, and just getting angry and being angry with anyone and everyone else, whilst going very easy on ourselves. Normally, it's supposed to be the other way round, that we are supposed to be harder on ourselves than we are on other people. If we are Christians, if we are disciples of the Lord Jesus, and living and acting and behaving accordingly. But that is not to say that this very limp form of Christianity, which is many Christians' Christianity, is really severely truncated. And you've got these kind of sort of, Christians who, the very idea that a Christian could get angry, oh, no, that's terrible. Oh, we should be forgiving all the time, and we should be, there's no place for anger if you're a Christian. You've got to be a nice person. Well, I've just said that we've got to be careful as far as anger is concerned, but there is a place for anger. And this is now the time and the place, it seems, for Jacob at any rate. Because after 20 years of putting up with it, after 20 years of patience, after 20 years of giving Laban the benefit of the doubt, after 20 years of, bearing the brunt of all of Laban's wheeling and dealing, Jacob's had it. That's why he's left. And it appears that God has ratified Jacob's decision by the very act of warning Laban not to stop him and not to even consider attempting force. And I'm not going to go back over, of course, everything that Jacob details to Laban about, everything that he has had to put up with whilst being with him and whilst being in his service. But it's all there spelled out for us again in our reading. And so Jacob says, in effect, well, there we are. I can tell you why I think that God has warned you, because God is just. God sees all. It doesn't matter what contracts you have drawn up. It doesn't mean, what your wheeling and dealing may be. Yes, as you say, I came to you with nothing, and it is true that on the face of it, everything that I have here now, that comes from you. But it is mine because we agreed upon this and we agreed upon that. And, it's up to you now to honor the agreement because God is just. God sees. God knows. It's God who's warned you, not me. So let me go. And of course, centuries down the line, Moses will be saying a similar thing to Pharaoh. But there we are. We leave it there for now. Next time around, Jacob's managed to break free from Laban, but he's got to square up and shape up to getting back together with his brother Esau. So we just have to leave Jacob hanging there for the minute, and I'll see you next time around.